I'm Etzion from Israel. Today is the 28th of September 2024. As usual, we start with a musical piece, and this musical piece was recorded 9 years ago while I was still participating in the wind band of Mevaseret. It was my first band, and here you can see one of my first appearances. I used to play the flute. I was looking for a recording where I was still playing the flute. I didn't find it yet, but it should be. It's more than 10 years ago. And what do I do now? Oops. Just a minute. Supposed to do the sharing. Okay. We will share the musical piece. This is by Elgar. I think they call it Pop and Circumstance, if I'm not wrong.
Same lady conductor? No.
Here I am here with the, you see me here with the bassoon. 9 years ago.
כן. הצלצול הזה היה צליל של כיבוי של פלאפון?
This is our conductor, Jonathan Lenneman, at that time. And before that, I was sitting here with my flute. Hope you liked it. Wonderful. I think they call it a piece of Elgar Pop and Circumstance or Glory or something. I don't remember the name in English.
It's
Maybe
English, isn't it?
Sorry?
We often hear it here in England. It's an English piece.
Yes, Elgar
Yes.
is, I think it was
It's
English.
beautiful.
Now, after this, as usual, I bring the musical piece not only for entertainment, which is very good, get to establish some nice energy for the session, also to attract the spectators. At least they would come and listen to the music, and they can stay or not if they so they wish, but also to re-emphasize again and again that the musical band is the closest to the what we call spiritual circle. It's the only situation I believe for humanity that a few individuals get together, complete strangers, work together with perfect accord in order to create the music under the conducting of a person, the conductor, without which there's no way to achieve the music. And that's the way a spiritual circle is working. Atom is a spiritual circle. It is a center, and everything rotates around it. That's our life. We are always, sometimes we behave as the nucleus, and sometimes we are the satellites. Well, while we go to work, we are the subjects. We have to obey the people for whom we are working, and sometimes we employ people, then we become the center, etc. This is a system, it's a fractal system all over the universe, from the very beginning to the very end, in each world, in each galaxy, there is a center around which the entire galaxy is rotating. And this we should reinstate in humanity if you want to heal humanity. Otherwise, it's not going to work. These are basic principles, whether we agree with this or not. Now, after this, we'll read a little bit Genesis from where we stopped last time. And we have a surprise, a new Baba book in Hebrew, which is a real Baba miracle. And I'm going to explain what is this. I can share it because it's also an ebook. So we'll look through it a little bit. Baba has endless surprises. And if he wants something, there's no way to stop it. If he wants a Baba book and gets a community, he has his own ways. Because the last book I published was the Discourses, I think it was 2006. I think 2006, I didn't publish any official Baba book because the community is not interested. Otherwise, I would continue doing it. But I'm supposed to be practical. After I published the discourses, so hardly anyone bought it. Even 100
When
days.
will you have it translated?
Sorry?
When will you have it translated to English?
I translated the discourses from English to
No,
Hebrew.
no, your new book.
This only in Hebrew. It's a
I know.
memorial. It's a memorial for a good friend of mine who came to Baba during the 90s. He was a blind man. He found a book of mine somewhere, and he called me, so we'll come to his place to give Baba meetings in the 90s. And we kept communication till he passed away 2.5 years ago. And after he passed away, I received an impulse from Baba, write an article about him. So I received such an impulse from Baba and towards anyone. It's even not rare. I think it happened only with Keri Ben Shammai, that I had to collect and recollect all the memoirs about her. Whom else? Actually, I don't know. I don't know, for whom I spent such an effort. So I wrote an article and shared with the family, and more people offered articles about the person. And I said, might as well will collect his spiritual legacy. So whole book is reminiscences of his relatives and family, and it's actually the book, also the spiritual part, is a good introduction for spirituality for any person who wants to get started with spirituality. If he would read the various articles, which most of them I collected, would be a nice beginning. Okay, so I will start with the Genesis a little bit. I'll read it for the continuation. Also, the title of these meetings are the Book of Genesis and Baba Strips. The people, if they like the Book of Genesis or not, they can simply skip it and continue later on. Whatsoever is flexible and okay. Book of Genesis, here you are. Now, this is where we stopped last week. I mark it in yellow, so when we know where we stopped. In the Hebrew language, we're talking about 10 sessions just on the first chapter, and we will be just now enter the second chapter. Just imagine how deep the first chapter of a book is. And this first chapter didn't contain 100 pages, but a page and a half in the book of Genesis. These are all short chapters, very concise, very deep, and they contain all the information in the universe. And this can be done only through the Hebrew language. In the ancient scholars and prophets had the spiritual understanding that the Hebrew is a communication, the contract with the divine, and they knew the real in and outs as the secrets of the Hebrew. Hebrew was the closest language to the creation language. Now, in the beginning, very beginning, there was a being by the name of Elohim, gods. It's important to say gods in plural. This is who we are. We are the gods who emanated from the infinitude and became particles in the creation. This is a big spiritual Big Bang. And now we moved into the physical creation, supposedly, to come back to the union of the souls, which is actually the creator. We believe the monotheism that there is one God. But how could it be one God if there are endless beings who comprise one God? It is a union, this ultimate union of the individuals. And now we came to the new entity, Yahweh Elohim. Yahweh is singular, Elohim plural. The plural is coming back to singularity. This is a union of the opposites, just the same as experience in musical band. When we watch the experience, the musical band, listen to it, what we experience oneness. We don't listen to each player individual, the individuality of each one, but the collective combined energies. And this is Yahweh Elohim, the union of the opposites. And when we play together in a spiritual circle, this is a culmination of the spiritual circles. First and foremost, there we can render the experience, the real experience of the truth. Even without becoming God realized, each one of us is being invited to this fraternity called Yahweh Elohim. And I said in the past, there's only one condition, that we don't entertain any grudge whatsoever in our subconscious mind. Automatically, we can enter this fraternity or a club. It is open for any person. It has nothing to do with spiritual advancement, of course. The spiritual advancement is there. It is, I call it, like in the army, we have ranks from a corporal to the general. And let's say God realization, he became a general in the Baba's army, but what's the good of the general without the troops, without the corporals? It's good for nothing. So you read the whole spectrum. I'm using this expression, Yahweh, with respect. Actually, Jews are not allowed to say this expression due to its sanctity, and we humans, after the destruction of the temple, are impure. That's the way they made it. I'm not going to argue about this. I also have deep sense of sacredness towards what this offers us. But there is no awe of fear from this. My experience is of deep love and friendship. The notion prevalent in many, maybe almost all religions, of fearing God seems to me absurd. It is an insult to this manifestation of love divine, which means to serve the ongoing march of creation, while humanity is supposed to assume its spiritual role. The fearsome God is a human invention, often a misunderstanding of the role this being symbolizes. It is also a mirror which reflects our inner state, often as a crooked mirror which we behold with fear and terror, afraid of punishment, due to our violation of the code that this being imposed on us, supposedly. Fear of God is the worst type of insult of him. This issue will be dealt with later on, analyzing the lives of various persons mentioned in the Torah, whom I refer to as members of the circle of Yahweh Elohim. And as I said, we are all being invited. Of myself, I am aware that there is an enormous hierarchy above us, supposedly, but this world above is not correct. We all are part of a process meant to design states of consciousness which supposed to transcend forever. For whatever crazy reason, we decided during a certain phase to deny this process and turn to the opposite natural direction of the creation. This is the reason why this entity, Yahweh Elohim, became something mysterious and not accessible, even fearsome. Even today, Jews, when praying to this entity, you can see it, they fear. I've been to synagogues. There is a respect, there is adoration, and also fear, unfortunately. Let's try to view it from a different angle. We see that the basic structure in the creation, the atom, functions with perfect harmony. It comprises of many particles, supposedly, and presumably the word particle is not accurate. I rather call it a group of individuals which together establish a harmonious system which functions with utter perfection. These individuals are glued together by tremendous force, which we can call love. This process of harmonious binding together continues to act when groups of atoms bind together and form more and more complicated systems. Throughout this massive force, predominate force which aspires to bring back the creation which was shattered to endless individuals back to its original unity. The simile of the atom actually functions throughout the entire creation, till the solar system, which functions quite similarly. It has a focal point and all the elements. Focal point by the S. Okay. Already keep on discovering in spite of endless corrections, it keeps on surfacing here and there something. And all the elements within its sphere rotating around it. Such systems function perfectly, endlessly, from the minutest point to the greatest galaxies. There is only one system in the creation which doesn't function like this, the human system. Now, when we complain about the present state of the world and humanity, if you don't understand this, that we are the only system which doesn't function properly, this can never be healed. And all the world reformers and healers don't understand it. Trying to bring up some kind of artificial happiness. Everybody will look fulfilled and happy, and nobody will be hungry, and everybody will be healthy. This is not going to work. Till we reconnect to our true mission. If we will view the human systems, then the mineral kingdom functions perfectly. It provides the basis on which the plant's kingdom can be developed. And also these function with perfect harmony. The forces of love work simultaneously between the minerals and the plants. Again, found something? I have to mark it in order also to correct other versions. And thus a road is being paved for a higher and much more complex world, the animal kingdom. The world of plants is a higher state of consciousness than the mineral kingdom, and so forth. Actually, a plant is the sum total of all the states of consciousness of the minerals. This is the apex, and then it takes the form of a plant. When all the states of consciousness of the minerals come together, this is due to their inner effort to reach perfection. So they reach the state of a plant, which is sum total for all the minerals, contains all the minerals, etc. That's the process of coming back to union. One plant is a union of all the minerals. Also here, certain harmony is being prevailed. But now we discover a world where the individuals preying upon each other, a world where fear and violence predominate. To my view, the animal kingdom is but a reflection of the subconscious human mind. The evil, fear, and hatreds which are stored deep within the subconscious mind of humanity take shape in the physical sphere. The evil thoughts being generated due to these dark forces, which act in the depth of the subconscious mind, become solidified in the material world, influence the behavior of the animals. The only possible solution has been that the humankind will return to the proposed plan, and its refusal constitutes the chaos on earth. If you remember, in the first chapter of Genesis, just a few paragraphs before this, the Lord ordained that all of creation will eat only vegetables and fruit, including the animal kingdom. There was no shedding of blood, almost a painless creation, almost. Because of this little almost, which is 1%, a little bit of suffering is needed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any stamina to advance. And we wanted to erase this little bit of suffering, 1% or 1,000% or 1,000,000% of what's going on today. So everything will be just wonderful and nice. And due to the fact that we, with our limited understanding, we can understand the purposes of creation. This is the meaning of eating the fruit of the tree, the forbidden fruit, and we'll discuss it later on. All these things are key to understand, and if you see all the people on earth trying to fix it, they don't have any understanding whatsoever of the root cause of all the problem. And here we're touching the root cause of the problem. That's the purpose of the Torah, a guide for the spiritual training. All the truth is here. This process of the emergence of more and more complicated worlds is actually the manifestation of advancing states of consciousness. Science most likely will deny all these remains of ancient creatures from hundreds of million years ago already were preying upon each other, while humanity appeared relatively recently in comparison to the periods of time which are being discovered on Earth. They discovered in excavations dinosaur, all these beasts intertwined in the puddle of death, and they could see they were eating each other, and they killed each other during the struggle who will win and eat the other, and they both killed each other. They all both died together, and they fell into the swamp, and they become crystallized there and became fossilized, and eventually they discovered during the 20th century, and before that and after that, they keep on discovering remains of ancient creatures, which the science dates to hundreds of millions backwards. So where was this period that there was no bloodshed on Earth? That isn't our issue. This is not the point with this article. We don't study the periods of creation by science. I'm not saying the science is wrong. This is not the issue at all. But this article is not dealing with what science sees through God's eyes. Investigate, search, and compare. No doubt the scientists are doing their best, but this is not a scientific treatise. There is no such pretense here. What is being offered here meant to provoke thought, to view things from a non-conventional angle. What is a man or a woman? Of course, a man is a principle, cosmic principle. What is so special about him in comparison to other creatures? He can generate thoughts which solidify in the physical realm. Is this phenomenon unique only for the situation when the individual takes on the body with the shape of a human being? I don't think so. Pay heed that in this chapter, first man was created, and all other components of the creation followed. Chapter 2 is the reverse of chapter 1. Chapter 1, man came at the end. Chapter 2, man is the foundation stone of creation. First, man appears. Also, Baba says it in his discourses in the infinite intelligence, the creation, its causes. The very first thing is man, all wrapped up like as if you take how you call it, a rag, take a doll, a rag doll, and you twist it, compress it, you make it like a ball. This is the very first hint of what man is. Man is everywhere. This is a foundation stone. If we will consider carefully everything that exists, then the basic structure of man prevails throughout. Every creature is like a tube with a mouth at one side and anus from the other side, together with head, eyes, hands, legs, and reproduction organs. This principle exists. Should be exists. Thank you for your patience. Actually, what is this 6 is doing here, I don't know. Over these layers and layers of correction, when you open a Word document, sometimes it does things by itself. Already in the plant kingdom, but here there is no head, brain, and complex nervous system. The critical question is when man appears in the creation as a force that its thoughts solidify in the earthly sphere, what is the meaning that animals have feelings and passions which act without control? They act wildly without any concern due to the force of earthly survival. Man is supposed to be the regulating factor which directs the evolutionary process of the animal kingdom. But not only the animal, we are man, humankind, at the apex of creation. We're supposed to regulate the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms towards reaching state of man, and then to continue to enter the phase of involution to achieve the goal. There is no need to achieve super consciousness in order to function collectively harmoniously. This is the purpose of man on earth, to create working circles of cooperative persons, should be persons. Amazing. Work together with brotherhood, a work circle of people as a collective state of consciousness which is higher than each separate individual. And further on, when such group functions together harmoniously, even greater states of consciousness are being formed, and so on and so forth. Just exactly as we witnessed with the musical band, that together we create a state of consciousness, the musical piece that each individual cannot do. That's a hint for the spiritual circle, but of course, this group is not a spiritual circle, but they have to be, each one of the participants must first and foremost focus on the divine beloved. And the conductor must have, should have, somewhat a greater vision than the rest of the participants, but also a human conductor has a greater vision because he's supposed to understand the music, supposed to interpret the music, supposed to learn the musical instruments. He's supposed to know their nature and how to play them and how to put all the musicians together. So his personal vision is greater than the participants, but still, it isn't a spiritual circle. It's a human achievement, which is very well and very good, but this is the beginning of something. This is the basic principle of creation from its initial moment. The elementary particles keep on mating immediately after their differentiation. In these processes, greater states of consciousness are being formed. Thus, an atom is a sum total of the particles which construct it. If an atom symbolizes a state which we call gases, iron, copper, carbon, etc., as a group, they represent higher states of consciousness than the separate entity. From one atom of iron, we cannot make a knife. For this, we need a cohesive group of atoms who bound together with great force. They actually strongly mate, and that brings them to a unity. But this is a unity of certain kind. In order to achieve the primal unity, the entire components of the creation must be remarried together. This state exists in a supreme body composed of group of individuals endowed with superconsciousness, acting together with perfect accord. Human beings call such a group as God or Elohim. Now we call it Yahweh Elohim because God is singular, Elohim is plural. We come back from being plural from manyness to oneness. Now we achieved in this state when we came back to this symbol which we call Yahweh Elohim. We came together as a group of individuals working together with perfect accord. Now, the term Yahweh Elohim represents such group of beings who act together with perfect harmony, from free choice without any coercion whatsoever, and due to superconsciousness with which the purposes of creation are obvious for the entire members. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, as there was not a man to till the ground. Totally backwards of the first creation, but totally rational. Now we'll start to understand the rational line which goes all over the Torah. It explains how everything was being formed, but from a different angle. And scholars thought that this is a different version of the creation. Somebody else wrote it, and somebody injected this chapter, which doesn't conform from the first chapter. But now we understand why is it. Because first man had to be created. And everything ensures come is being coming from life for man. Everything comes from us. We are the creators. We have to give birth to all the creation from us, and then they will come the minerals and plants and animal kingdoms, and then the rain will come on earth, and we'll understand what rain means. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Mists arising from the depths of the subconscious mind and shadow the face of the sun consciousness. The sun consciousness radiates over the sediments of accumulated memory which sink in the subconscious mind. There Sam זה הפריז. It sort of become fossilized, without any possibility of being ejected. Thus, the individual is being enslaved and he cannot cope with this anymore. And a man endowed with superconsciousness who knows how to deal with these internal systems, doesn't exist yet in order to till whatever exists on earth to serve the creation and uplift it. As long as this supreme state will not exist, human beings will remain as no more but talking animals. Yahweh Elohim didn't start to act in the physical realm due to the fact that the system through which he has to act was not formed yet in the physical realm. The system is humanity. Yahweh Elohim doesn't have the human mechanisms through which he can shower the divine design on earth. For this, man has to recreate himself from the spiritual standpoint, or in simpler words, to take spiritual responsibility to restore the understanding that the creation is dependent upon him and is not some kind of intelligent talking animal. What I see in these stories is simile of what our internal work should have been. That all these processes of creation are actually happening within ourselves. These are reflections of what we have to do internally to recreate ourselves as men and women, spiritual men and women, as a participants of the fraternity of the gods, of the masters, the group of the masters, the union of the opposites, as one beings, as the Torah called Yahweh Elohim. And we can call also when we here, the perfect masters and the avatar, or the perfect masters are one. It is all a state of oneness. And we will continue next week from here. As we can see, that these messages are very strong, right? These are very powerful messages, and this is just a few, one paragraph of this, or two paragraphs from the second chapter of Genesis. Quite strong, I believe, right?
Yes, of course.
These are basics. If you don't understand these basics, as it is being portrayed from the past sessions, you're already in the 10th session of the book of Genesis. And to read it for an hour, might be too much, I believe. It's too concentrated material. So we have to digest it slowly. Now we'll come to the new Baba book, which is quite, I will explain what it is. We have it as an ebook, and open the ebook now. Well, is the ebook, what happened to you? I don't see it now. Prepared it before, why it's gone somewhere? I have to reopen it, just a minute. Should be here somewhere. Here it is. Okay. Let's see if you can see it now. There's a book. This is an ebook of Ronen Bass, which I started to initiate. This is a very book. I don't know if you can see it. It doesn't matter. I'll show it to you later on. He did a wonderful job. This is a person, Ronen. Guess I can magnify it a little bit. Ronen Bass was a blind man. He lived in a city southern of Tel Aviv, name of Holon. And they found a Baba book. He was a very spiritual person. He needed to know everything about any spiritual item in the country. If somebody published something, he had to know about this, and he wanted to read and know everything, all the spiritual movement, all the spiritual groups, or whomsoever does something in the country, he had to know. He was some kind of a hub of information for the entire country. He knew everything of what was going on. He was very curious. He had actually all the time to learn and investigate. Due to his blindness, he became blind when he suffered from eye disease. Became blind when he was 23, and he was also limping. He had a few serious problems, but all these problems didn't deter him from achieving his spiritual understanding. And he was studying and learning and advancing. And you see, he was often cheerful. Extremely seldom I heard him complaining about his state. We're all complaining about this and that. We are humans. Even myself, I'm sinning in this weakness sometimes. I'm still human, unfortunately. I'm joking, it doesn't matter, of course. And you skip most of it. Is a family started to reminiscent about him. It's one of his last pictures, I believe. Story of his life, everything is in Hebrew. Now, what it is, eventually, as I said, when he passed away, I got the impulse from Baba write an article about him. And as I said, this is Ronen and his sister. With whom I was working. So eventually this book was published. She was a key behind all this. I wrote an article, sent it to her, and then she shared my article, and she wrote what she wrote, and others of the family, and more than 20 people, I believe, wrote articles, reminiscences about Ronen, and it became some fascinating book. So family pictures, they did a remarkable job, didn't spare anything. Unusual, totally unusual book. I saw books that people made after the passing of a loving member of the family, but it's really the chops. This is not far before he passed away. This is the marriage of his adopted daughter. And you can see the daughter doesn't look like the father and the mother. She was adopted, most likely we adopt the people looks like from Russia or Ukraine, orphans. They adopted two girls. And he gave them a home, and everything was fine. They treat them as a family and daughters, and they were very happy, etc. Skim through all this. Soon we'll reach the spiritual aspect of the book. These are all kinds of people writing stories. These are friends who wrote their memoirs. I will, when I'm reading it from here, but I can read it from the book. It's page 95. This tribute was written by the president of the Theosophical Society. Ronen was a member of the Theosophical Society from 1986. And maybe in their library, he found the Book of Mine in the 90s, but maybe not, or maybe in the library, because I came to know about the Theosophists in Israel through Ronen Bass during 1999 or 2000. They were looking for a person to translate the secret doctrine of Blavatsky into Hebrew, was abridgment. So I came to know about the Theosophist through Ronen Bass. Now, I started my spiritual sojourn in this life from the Anthroposophical Society, which was derived from Theosophy. Rudolf Steiner, in the end of the 19th century, beginning of 20th century, he was the leader of the Theosophical group in Germany, and he split from them over the controversial issue of Krishnamurti. He couldn't accept Krishnamurti as a world teacher. So he resigned from this organization, and he opened his own organization, Anthroposophy, Wisdom of Man, Theosophy, Wisdom of God. So here there was a tribute about him by the first president of the president of the Theosophical Society, about the qualifications of Ronen, his curiosities, his incredible capabilities of memory. He, without eyes, he had a photographic memory, wouldn't forget anything, and he wanted to know everything. So he was an ardent student of whatsoever studies he was participating with. This is key for some also unusual Baba story which came up later on. Also, of course, I also wrote a tribute for Ronen, and also Michal Sivan, our Michal, wrote a tribute for him. This is what I was writing in his memoir. Let me see, where is it? Because I cannot read it from here. Just a few words. I wrote a tube. This is what I wrote after Ronen passed away. I knew Ronen during the 90s when he approached me for various spiritual issues with whom I have been dealing since the 70s. I knew from close, I was closely associated with the teaching of Rudolf Steiner and the lectures of Avatar Meherabad. Some of their writings are translated into Hebrew. Of course, mainly Avatar Meherabad. Also, I did quite a contribution to the Anthroposophical Society, translating books and lectures of Steiner for Hebrew and improving translations. Ronen connected me with the Theosophical Society when they looked for a translator for the abridgment of the secret doctrines that Elena Blavatsky wrote towards the end of the 19th century. We met many times. He kept on communicating with me even after we stopped these meetings. What touched me deeply in his personality is that he was always with good expression. He was mostly cheerful, and he almost never complained about his predicament. My feeling was that not only he accepted his limited situation, but this gave me the opportunities to develop capabilities and qualification on other aspects that we most usually don't pay heed to. Last time I met him, and he was hospitalized with a few various medical problems. On his face was an expression of deep bliss, as if he won first prize. For me, Ronen was an example for a person who dedicated his life to spirituality and learned to transcend beyond the limitations of the human body. And everybody thought it's just the same like this about him. That's his uniqueness. That was his role. And here I keep on telling stories about him and going to skip it. And this is most likely the reason why Baba wanted me to write an article about him. Most likely, in his library, you would see photos of Meherabad, books of Meherabad, even if you couldn't see it or couldn't read it, but he needed the energy of these books and photos. It was very important for him. Very unusual circumstance, very unusual. This is the teachings, which I compiled from various sources. I wrote here the introduction. I will skip it because it will come too long. It's immaterial. I touched the various, excuse me, spiritual groups, and this is philosophy, Rudolf Steiner, and Meherabad. Here you can see this is Meherabad in Hebrew. This is a teaching. I wrote a whole article about Meherabad. I'm not going to read it now, it's too long. And Michal Sivan, our Michal Sivan, also contributed an article about Meherabad. And here I contributed more, and this is our, what I call the cosmic engine. Whatever I presented, the place, this is a Jewish, a Hebrew spiritual master who was very popular during the 60s and 70s and the 80s, wrote many books. He had his own organization for spiritual seekers. Very interesting. This is a book of Yogananda. Paramsa Yogananda, interesting, very interesting human being. He wrote an article about Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus. Ronen was very deeply in love with him. So I contained a few articles about this. Ramana Maharshi, which she was in love with. Here is an article about Giordano Bruno. Giordano Bruno was an unusual figure in spiritual history. I don't remember if we discussed this, but I usually, in meetings, I used to bring up the phenomenon of Giordano Bruno, one of the greatest heroes of spirituality of all times, who was, sorry, he was staked during the year 1600 by the Catholic Church for denying the fact that the sun rotates around the earth, and which is a Aristotelian concept. And the Catholic Church adopted the understanding of Aristotle, and if you denied it, you had to be put to death, and they burned down Giordano Bruno, becoming an heretic. If you knew more about Yeshua and Christian godhood, more than all this church burning people or saying different, for thinking thoughts. Okay, we are back here. Stop sharing. And we're still recording. You want to make some comments for the record, or I'll stop the recording?
I was just asking if you're going to translate it.
I don't think so. It's only for the Hebrew readers.
Which English one?
But I think it is possible. I have, of course, the original Word documents. I was preparing everything, all this book. This is a book. Quite a big book. A heavy
It is
book.
big.
Big, heavy book. Incredible.
It is big.
How many pages altogether? More than 200 pages. Remarkable book, very expensive. They didn't spare anything, the family, to enshrine their beloved Ronen. Amazing. We didn't see such a thing for time. We saw such books of memorials for deceased partner or family, but never seen such a thing like this. What is an intro, which I call the introduction for spirituality? I can translate part of this, was already translated into English before. Maybe what I wrote in the spiritual circles, what I wrote on Jesus, most likely it's already in English. But this might be an interesting, how you call it, introduction of spirituality by seekers, so they can see various concepts, spiritual streams, and it was not put like this before. Okay, now thank you very much. I'll stop the recording.